Everybody for tuning in to Coder Conversations. If you want to catch up on any previous episode, visit us at www.coderconvos.com. I'm your host, Kevin, and for today's guest, we have game developer Nico Papalia. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It's definitely a pleasure to have you on, man. So, your latest game, Athenian Rhapsody, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So I released one game so far. It's called Athenian Rhapsody. It is a comedic RPG that uses real-time action in the battles. I started making games using the Game Maker engine in 2020 when I was at SUNY Unianta. Really liked it. So when I graduated with a degree in studio art, just like drawing with pencils and stuff like that, I decided to pursue it full time. Kind of just met people along the way, got paired up with the publishing company, Top Hat Studios, grinded it out, got really close with the Game Maker team, and released it onto consoles and PC. And actually, we did mobile too because the game had a pretty big TikTok following. So that was kind of my inception. It's almost like Undertale, Earthbound, Pokemon kind of inspired. And then since then, I've been working on another game in the same vein, another RPG that just kind of takes everything that game did well and improved it mechanically and, made everything more snappy. Took all the things that players liked from that, listened to the feedback from the press and stuff like that, and tried to improve it. Similar thing, but better, more fun. And then I'm also working on another one now, which is a mobile game called Gooby Garden, which is almost like a Tamagotchi, Super Auto Pets kind of game. So diversifying a little bit. And that's kind of like the spark notes on my background, I guess, as a game developer. Total indie, very indie guy.
Yeah, it seems like you were inspired by a lot of the 2D RPGs during that era, like you mentioned, Undertale.
Yeah.
What are some of your other inspirations?
So, definitely Undertale. I played that when it came out when I was in high school, and I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought that was pretty cool. But more recently, when I started that game, Athenian Rhapsody, because a lot of people compare it to SNES games like Earthbound, obviously Earthbound, and I haven't played Earthbound yet at that point. So a little bit after I started, I just starting as a hobbyist game dev, I started it first as a game almost like a Zelda top down. And I played Earthbound once I switched it to an RPG, and then that was kind of a formative experience. And I feel like some things that I was doing already aligned with that. But in terms of things that I already knew coming in that I was inspired by was Super Mario RPG by Square. That's probably my biggest inspiration. That game was just awesome as an RPG experience. And I think you might be able to tell by playing Athenian Rhapsody when it comes to the flavor text or just things the NPCs say. It doesn't take itself so seriously. And I haven't really played anything else by Square, to be honest. I've never done Final Fantasy or anything, but I probably should. So
Oh man,
probably
yeah.
that. Yeah, that would probably be my biggest inspiration.
So like when designing your own game, did you like completely like document everything before getting started, or you just kind of went along with the flow and just design things along the way?
You already got my wheels turned. This was a huge thing that everybody said to me. And I say this sometimes, like I've done a video with Game Maker on being solo dev and kind of taking your approach to your own games and stuff like that. No, I did not whatsoever. Because every time I tried to plan everything out, I would change my mind in like 2 days. So, and a lot of friends of mine who were peers in art and stuff like that took a different approach to things than I usually did. And they would say, oh, you should have a big plan before. And I knew things I wanted to do. I knew the message I wanted to convey and stuff, but I couldn't write a whole story and then follow all the beats. What worked for me is just intuitively waking up saying, this is going to be fun. I'm going to work on the gym biome for a week. And then, that's going to be awesome. I add this character. Then I add this thing that I think is fun. But with that did come that, at the end when it became kind of a bigger game and stuff like that, it was a little bit difficult to tie everything together.
Yeah.
I think I did do it fine, mostly because it's probably for kids. It's not the craziest lore ever, but you know what I mean? So, yeah, I took a total different approach to that. I kind of just pieced it together like building blocks, and then that allowed me to have fresh energy every time I developed and allowed me to actually want to develop what I was going to make. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of plan a story beat, and then a month later, you're like, oh, this sucks. This is boring. Don't make it then. That's kind of
Yeah.
how I thought.
I know.
Mhm.
I've dipped my hands into game development, and I was trailed off. So, like, how did you avoid just like, okay, you're halfway through, and you just lose inspiration and you just quit? Like, how did you see it all the way to completion?
Yeah, that's kind of a thing. I feel like there are a lot of pitfalls for when you're starting out making a game, for a lot of reasons. Like, it can be hard to get engagement. It can be hard to, monetize it. There's no money for a long time until it's like, out and successful. I think some things that kept me in it was that I've always been just kind of the person who gets pretty hyper fixated on things. I was like that with sports in high school, with cross country, and I was like that with this. I just really loved it, and I get very passionate about it. And some other aspects were probably that early on, I was paired up with my publishing partners, Top Hat Studios, and because I was so, not that I was so much younger. I was what, like 21, 22. I'm 26 now, probably 22. But new to the industry, they did teach me a lot and help me kind of go through the process of what is going to work and what's not going to work for my game, and what it means to launch a game successfully and kind of the business side of it. And I think that was a major reason that helped me not give up on it, because we had some things that were tough and stuff like that. But just because this is what I wanted as a career, I already spent all this time on it, and so it was kind of like I felt like I had an obligation to get it out, and obligation to myself and the people that were hyping me up to have it be financially successful for myself as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that must have been an amazing feeling actually getting out the door. But like, how did you manage to avoid just going through, especially with RPGs? They're really long
Yeah.
games, like through the eternal iteration cycle. Like, oh, I need to tweak this, tweak this, tweak this. Like, how did you know when to call it quits and when to just
Yeah.
stop improving and just get it out the door?
Yeah, I feel like I did that for a long time. For like, I kept redoing the beginning of the game and stuff like that, and you could just keep doing it forever. But I think that it was kind of like a hard realization for me at this point, because through my first game, I think every dev kind of gets that kind of like thing in their head where they're like, "This is my game," and how do I put this? I think, okay, a little side tangent first is a lot of people think that the game has to be successful just because it's their game and there's a lot of emotion invested in it and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And with that comes the just want to keep working on it, keep improving on it forever, and you got the blinders on, But eventually, um, you can kind of zoom out and say, this is my game, this is special, but it's not guaranteed to blow up just because I'm the most passionate guy in the world. I love it the most in the world. Oh, that's this LinkedIn thing. That was pretty cool. I saw that. um, but that's not the universe isn't magically going to reward you for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to actually work and make steps to have that happen. I think that a part of that is saying, man, this project is fully saturated with all the work that I can do, and if I want this to be financially successful, I need to take a step back, take it for what it is, and kind of put the work into marketing and all that other stuff, and just you got to realize at some point it's kind of done. You know what I mean? I put way
Yeah.
too much into Athenian Rhapsody. I scope crept the heck out of that game, and because I was so new as a programmer, the systems I made were really not dynamic. They were not really great, and that came to bite me in the butt when it came to bugs and stuff like that. So there is a point. There is a point. You got to pull yourself out of it. It's tough to do, but it's like a brain chemistry thing. That's kind of what I think about that.
So, like, at what point did the publisher get involved? Because I know, like, starting off, you probably didn't have it, the money, the funds to have to do the whole software development life cycle yourself, like
Yeah.
QA testing, etc. Like,
Yeah.
how were you able to get the publisher involved so they could actually like finish it as a software
Mhm.
product?
They got on pretty early, actually. I'll give you the whole timeline. So I was senior year in college. We were taking online classes, and I was in mostly art classes. So I would draw my pictures, whatever, and then I would sit there. I lived with my fraternity brothers. Like, I had so much time, just being in college and stuff. We'd just go work out. I would come work on the game. I was like crazy about it. So then I got a lot done. Then I graduated from school. Um, or did I? No, this was after I graduated. Yeah, that October, that next Halloween, the summer before, I did a Kickstarter. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no marketing, nothing. I had like 13K on TikTok or something. Just launched it. Launched it. Kickstarter raw dog, nothing, no lead up, anything. I made like $7,000, which was great for me at the time because I needed a computer. I didn't have a real computer. I needed to pay the composer who I was working with, just, some subscriptions to Adobe, all that stuff, because I like to use the Adobe suite. Just small chump change. So there's another game that I liked a lot at the time. What is it called? It was called something Cloudscape, something like that. It's like this little
Hmm.
guy. And I DM'd him and I'm like, yo, you made so much money on Kickstarter. How are you doing all this? How are you bringing your game to Switch? And he said, these are my publishers, Top Hat Studios. So I shoot them an email and I'm like, hey guys, this is my game. Check it out. What do you think? And this game is very early on. It's pretty, stinky at this point. Well, not stinky, but it's early. And they took a look at it and they sent me an email back and said, "Hey, cool, thanks for the info. We played it. This is what we like about it. This is what we think you can
Hmm.
do. Let's talk further." And we did. It was very early, very early. So they kind of invested early in it, and I thought it was a great deal. They were good guys. They still are good guys. Still work with them, talk to them every day. And that's kind of the point they got involved in. And that's, not the same case for every game. I think that they kind of saw something in it and they took a chance early because maybe now, because the economy is a little bit different, I don't know if it's so. I think they would because this is kind of what they do. They really look at the games and they have a passion for it. But I don't know how easy it is as an indie to get some kind of publishing deal very early on at the state I was in. You know what I mean? Because kind of
Yeah.
the state of video games and the economy is getting weird. I don't know. Everything's changing a lot. I don't really know.
Yeah.
They sell my games for like $15 and whatever. But
So
yeah,
like
pretty early. Mm-hmm.
in terms of like them giving you feedback, how much of it did you implement and how much did you give pushback on? Because I know it's kind of like a balancing act. Like you don't
Yeah,
want it's your baby, you don't want somebody to completely take it over, but you also have to be
yeah,
open to.
yeah. They don't really prod too much in terms of that, like in terms of gameplay and stuff like that. They will obviously
Mm.
make recommendations, but mostly in terms of scheduling and business stuff. And I always give pushback just because I don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm a pain in the butt. Like I do like to, I think I know best all the time, and then I kind of just try and learn. I try and just kind of let them lead that stuff, but especially when it comes to like scheduling stuff, like my new game Tales of Tuscany, I am gung ho. I want to just get a demo out, just to get kids playing it, and just get YouTubers playing it and all that stuff. But the thing is, in reality, it's smarter to wait on the demo until there is a large beat. You know what I mean? Like Steam Next Fest or something like that, just because it'll compound the exposure so much. And they're kind of on that. They're like, hey, let's do it smart. Let's do it slow. Let's be a little patient. And I'm kind of like, let's go. Let's do yesterday. You know what I mean? And I'm like,
Yeah.
freaking out on them. So, but I usually will take the back seat and be like, you know what? I do trust your vision. Let's just do what you recommend. So that's kind of where their feedback usually comes in.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important listening to like
Mhm.
seniors in the industry because they've been around, they know, the
Yeah.
business. So um,
Hmm.
how did you like go from okay, you're just like this indie guy that loves to make games into actually running a company to actually making this into a business and knowing that how to have your business in order?
Yeah. It was a transition probably around when the first game released and I actually started seeing like money and I'm like, "Oh, okay. What do I do now? Like what are my next steps?" And I kind of messed around for a little bit. I did some updates on the game. I did some collabs and stuff. Kind of just messed around. Sorry, hiccups. I had one thing where I went to a like burger place in the city, and I was going to do a collab with them, and like I had this whole in-game event set up for it too. And then they kind of turned around and started trying to charge me like $1,000, and it's like could I have done it? Yeah. Looking back, I don't know if maybe I would have, but I didn't like that, so I didn't do that. But I was doing stuff like that, and then I thought, okay, it's time for me to start another game. Um, and at the same time, I was making a little game, the Gooby Garden, the mobile game, on stream. And I thought that I would, play more into my socials because this is now my full time thing. Um, and just make it on stream just for content and stuff. And then that snowballed into um, me hiring 2 devs, and then that's kind of when the business mind took over, and it's like, all right, now I have to learn to be like a little bit of a boss, and then my buddy comes on, and then we make a new LLC, and then we get like real funding for it. You know what I mean? So it's like it's pretty much since launch, it's gotten more and more businessy. Now I feel like my mind is totally like half and half in terms of creativity and business, and it's kind of like my new RPG Tales of Tuscany is like where I can flex my creativity and just kind of like mess around like I did with the old game. It's my comfort zone, and it's great and it's a lot of fun. And then this mobile game is now back on the side of I'm uncomfortable with this. It's a lot more business oriented. It's a lot more like money oriented in terms of what's coming in, what has to go out. But I really like the business side, and I think it was just the moment of release is when it was like, okay, this is something to learn, and it also helps because now I have an interest in looking around and seeing what's happening with other games and stuff, especially because I'm making a live service now. I actually just saw some chatter on Twitter. It was the Fall Guys game is now going to what seems like an autopilot model. Have you seen that?
Oh no, I haven't seen that.
Yeah. So I think there's been some chatter on because I used to play when it came out in like 2020. That's what when I just started the Athenian Rhapsody. That's what me and my buddies were playing. We were playing Fall Guys, and then they boomed. They made this big like kind of genre almost, and then all these competitors came up like Stumble Guys, all this stuff. Roblox is massive now. Um, but they moved back to a model that's like I think it's just going to rotate through the past content. I don't know. Their language is kind of weird on Twitter. I'm kind of waiting to see how it unfolds. But like just keep an eye on that and be like, man, people are getting really mad and just seeing how they respond and taking that in and learning how to run my own games based on what their community's saying. I play Pokemon Go. That's probably the only video game I play and play. It's not really you don't really play that game.
Yeah.
kind of just gamble, I guess. But yeah, it kind of just tunes you into like different parts of the industry, and you watch things and you learn a little more, and it's interesting. I like the business side a lot, especially. Sorry, I know I'm going off, but when I did the plush for my Thunder Goober guy. I'll show you guys. Yeah, my shelf.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
that was a whole rabbit hole of like freight forwarding and stuff. Like, oh my god, that was crazy businessy. I just moved in with my girlfriend, and I have this shelf now for like my office space, and I was so excited. I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be awesome. I'm gonna have all kinds of stuff, and it looks horrible. It looks like crap, dude. Like I have nothing there. It's like I don't know. I gotta
Yeah,
get some stuff to fill it up with.
but yeah, man. I know creatives don't always like the business side. So, what about the
Mhm.
business side? Do you really like, and how do you balance handling business with unleashing your creativity? Because I know
Yeah.
sometimes you might have all of these ideas, but you got to be able to pay for it.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I think bottom line for me is my motivation. I think in like the past 2 months, I kind of really realized that my motivation is always to make experiences for players that translate into real life. And for Athenian Rhapsody, every time you complete the game, you get your save file converted into a postcard called a Rhapsody. Do
Mm.
I have any with me right now? Because I used to print them out for people. And like, no. Yeah, so you get a postcard in game that you can trade with players, other players, cross platform, internationally, whatever. You have little IDs and stuff like that. And I was doing something for a little while where I would print out the players' Rhapsodies and mail it to them and write a little note on the back. I was selling them at PAX and stuff like that. So the ultimate satisfaction for me is seeing people enjoy the game, play the game, and have it somehow impact their real social experiences. And I think that to expand that and make that happen more, I realize that the business aspect is a necessity because that's going to enable me to
Mm.
do these things and create these experiences. Like for the mobile game, well, here's one thing. For Athenian Rhapsody, I try to make this system. My publishers help me a lot with this. They help me program it. The event system, which is supposed to work like kind of like it did back in the Pokemon games, where like you show up
Mm.
somewhere, you get a special Pokemon, and I kind of did a mini version of that where I had these limited time tickets players could redeem, and that would unlock some game content for them. And I did 3 of them, and that was like kind of my attempt at a live service social experience kind of model, and it wasn't really viable monetarily. It didn't really do anything for me, and it was kind of just hitting a fraction of the existing player base. Um, and that was kind of an aspect why I thought, why don't I split that up into the mobile game and then my RPG, and I keep the RPG and RPG, and then they keep the live ops social experiences in the mobile game. Tales of Tuscany still has the Rhapsodies, but like, here's an example. It's like, what if I'm doing, I do like food challenges sometimes. What if I'm like doing this crazy food challenge and I'm like, all right, everybody who plays Gooby Garden in-game news, come to this restaurant and watch me do the food challenge, and you will get like special Gooby egg or something like that. You know what I mean? So making this business successful and making sure that it gets a lot of players and like makes money and stuff like that will enable me to do that. And that's the bottom line. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, how do I get here? How do I do that? Like, trying to think of an analogy. Like, you want to. No, I can't. That's not a good analogy. You want to have a nice room, but to have a nice room, you have to learn interior design. That might not have been your first choice. You know what I mean? Something like that. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
So you just kind of learn to enjoy it as part of the process.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I also, I'm gonna be honest. I like, I'm like more of an adult now. You know, I have like a girlfriend. I have my own house and stuff. Like, I actually do enjoy making money. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Maybe not when I started, but yeah, now I actually do enjoy being profitable, and I want to continue that. If possible. So
So yeah, I know. The gaming community. What was pretty amazing is like, okay, you create this amazing experience. It's something that they might carry with them for the rest of their lives. Like it's
yeah,
like a core memory.
yeah.
Um, so like in regards to your community, gamers can also be either incredibly toxic or incredibly supportive. So how did you create a community that is pretty supportive of what you do?
Oh, my community is actually very toxic. Actually, no, I'm just kidding. No, I'm totally joking. No, no, I actually will say, this is pretty cool that you brought it up. That I think that my community from the very start is probably a major factor as to why I'm successful and why I can do things and take risks, because they're very engaged, they're very positive, and they are very outwardly supportive of myself and my project. So. I get a lot of very beautiful fan art. I get a lot of very beautiful messages and stuff like that. And I feel like people who do enjoy the game enjoy it to a point where they will express it to other people, and they'll follow myself as a dev, and they will support my other projects as well. I think that the way that started, and why why it's like that, is because probably on the early days of Athenian Rhapsody, I marketed the game solely basically through TikTok. I would kind of just, film myself, film the screen, whatever I was doing. And I also included a lot of things about myself as a developer. Like, I would do like going to the gym and stuff. I would do just like all kinds of stuff. And the community would mess with me about the game and things like that. And it didn't really translate to a wish list for a long time. Like, I didn't really understand what that was. And that was kind of a concern about my publishers, because like, we had like 1,000 wish lists at that point. And they were like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, you need to like tell them the wish list. I was like, what? I was like, no, who cares? I was like, who cares about that? But I think the social proof of the social media and TikTok and stuff back then really translated into people knowing and remembering the game, and a lot of connections with influencers and YouTubers and stuff like that, and built this almost like, I don't want to say like, not like a parasocial thing, but like, because it's still a reasonable size that I can interact with people and stuff like that, which makes it more meaningful. And yeah, I don't know, it's just all been good and positive and stuff, and I try really hard to display, um, I guess, like a character of myself that's like just like well, not that I'm not this, but just like a normal guy who just does normal things, listens to his mom and like does homework and stuff. You know what I mean? Because I recognize they're mostly teenagers and stuff. So, yeah, I think that's kind of it. Just getting personal, and that's what I recommend to a lot of other developers when I do content about being a solo dev and stuff like that. Sometimes alongside Game Maker.
So like, how important is it for you to like create a universe, like characters that the players actually connect with? Because I know like a
Mhm.
game like Undertale, you can in your mind you can recall a lot of the characters instantly, whereas some other games, it's gameplay mechanic based, but you don't really remember anybody's.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think that the characters were probably my strongest part of Athenian Rhapsody, and maybe why there was so much staying power in its success and stuff like that is just because I would make characters and I would get really into the mindset of their dialogue and stuff like that in the zone. And in Athenian Rhapsody, there's 16 party members that you can recruit that all have their all individual stories and stuff, and they're all very different. So my mentality was kind of like, all right, everybody's got to have a favorite because there's so many different characters, and luckily that worked out. And you can see now like all these kids drawing these characters for me and stuff like that, and they really like them. I'm surprised. I mean, I don't know. I got lucky that they like the game, that they like the characters, stuff like that. I don't know. But the characters were definitely a strong point. I think everything else follows suit, and I think having strong characters is a really important thing in terms of indies and stuff like that. Not just design, but depth and stuff like that. So I kind of look at a lot of games and I think about the characters. I think that like something like when Apex Legends came out, they had an awesome roster of characters. I thought that was really good. I always liked Bloodhound, which is like the kind of they're all decked out in gear and stuff like that. You can't really tell who it is. It doesn't matter. Um, I feel like characters with identity that you can project onto them are a lot easier to like. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when something is too creative. Like, look, let's take this for example. People really resonate with Red in Pokemon. You know what I mean? Just because he's like a pretty blank thing, but maybe the protagonist from like Pokemon Coliseum, he's more of like an edgy guy and has more of like a personality. It's kind of harder to project yourself into something like that. So I think I totally just went on a huge tangent here. But basically, I try to make a lot of characters so everybody can have a favorite and everybody can get really attached to one. And in Tales of Tuscany, I'm amplifying that as well.
So do you feel like you have to kind of like leave a space, so to say, in order for the player to be able to interject themselves versus like rigidly defining everything?
Yeah, and not always the case, but I do think that's something really important, and I think that you at least have to give some room for players to do that with some characters. You know what I mean? Like you can't have like it's great. Yeah, you got to have design characters with backstories and personalities and a lot of depth. But I think it's also important to provide a space for them to step into it. You know what I mean? So the protagonist in my last game, Cornball, was just a human. They had no opinions, nothing. They just smiled, just a little guy, and everybody could kind of I'm, I'm glad about this. Everybody has, drawn themselves as this character. They can kind of see themselves just a kid with a hat or a girl with a visor. They're not really gendered. It's just kind of two different designs.
Mhm.
Um, and I was really happy about that. The protagonist of my next game is a little different than that though. His name is Lammy Poo. It's like a little sheep, and it's supposed to be like you're projecting inside of that sounded weird. Like you're like controlling him.
Yeah.
um, but I still think there's a lot of room for you to kind of make it your own. And yeah, I do think that's important. You know what I mean? Just having blank slate characters for the like it's one thing that's great to have a lot of dialogue for every option, stuff like that. But I was thinking about this with my next game, Tales of Tuscany. People get very attached to the Pokemon that they catch in game, and like the DS games and stuff like that. But there's really not a lot of interaction that you can have with the actual Pokemon. So why do people develop these bonds with them? It's because they fill in the blank using their imaginations through gameplay. You know what I mean? So I'm like, why don't I let the player do a little bit of that in my next game, Tales of Tuscany, as well, instead of just having them talk at the player? You know what I mean? That's kind of what I'm thinking about that.
Yeah, yeah, you made an amazing point about like one of the pillars that indie developers use is they have to have strong characters. Like
Mhm.
what are some of the other mechanisms that indie developers should focus on in order to be able to compete in a really saturated market?
Yeah, yeah. So I've been watching, and this is for the mobile game. I've been watching the Google Play seminars and stuff like that. And I watched one, forget his name off the top of my head. Sorry, man. But this guy did a seminar, and he basically was talking about creating value and monetization in mobile games. And one thing he said that could apply to pretty much all games is that creativity and like good gameplay and good visuals is no longer a luxury, but a necessity. And it's kind of true. You know what I mean? Like there's so many games released every single day. Like having a good game that feels nice mechanically and looks nice and is very satisfying. Like, everything should be satisfying. It's no longer a luxury. That's the bottom line to, have a game that's going to make, professional, but enough money to sustain you. You know what I mean? Like as like a human, like as a career. Um, so some other things that you have to do now is you have to be smart at marketing. You have to have unique angles, and I think that you really have to slam it out a lot. You know what I mean? Recently, going from Athenian Rhapsody to Tales of Tuscany, I realized that TikTok is not really the place for indie game developers to post anymore. It kind of just doesn't really track as much as it used to. It's a much different platform. So the new wave was YouTube Shorts. You know what I mean? So you have to adapt to that new meta. Been slamming that every single day. I picked up an editor to help me out putting videos out and stuff like that too. And just adapting and getting yourself out there. It's it's tough out there, man. There are so many games, especially I used to feel kind of discouraged about how many RPGs people work on. And I feel like there's just so much noise, you know what I mean, of RPGs, but how many actually come out and how are you going to make people take you more seriously? It's tough. It's tough, but you get a hang of it, and it's not something to be scared of. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So, like you mentioned, the RPG market, for example, is extremely saturated. You have products like RPG Maker. Anybody can, put a little something out. So, what do you think
Mhm.
it was that really made your game punch out from the crowd and people really attached to it?
I don't think that Athenian Rhapsody was really anything mechanically crazy. I think that there were. Look. I mean to say, like, you look at the game and you're not like, whoa. Like you look at Octopath Traveler and you're like, this game looks sick. You're immediately hooked. Athenian Rhapsody doesn't look like that. Athenian Rhapsody looks cute. It looks charming. It has its highly saturated visuals and stuff. It's kind of my thing, I guess now, my art style. But I think that what set it apart was probably that it was so personal and my marketing was so personal so people could kind of get behind it a person a little bit more, not to like toot my own horn, but it was kind of something that not really a lot of indie devs take advantage of, which they should. That I always say you should. I said your superpower is you can put your name behind things and people can like you as a person as well. um, I think what also set it apart was probably the humor, probably just the absurd situations that I would broadcast and stuff like that. I think that the Rhapsody thing, I thought was really special and really set it apart. And while I think it does, I don't think that it really did a lot to market the game, the whole connectivity thing. And still, like, I kind of don't really mention it as much for Tales of Tuscany because I feel like it's more. Um, it's a lot more value for me to say, "Oh, you're a sheep and you have a button that makes you buy, and it's crazy," than for me to go, "Oh, but look, you can collect these things and trade." You know what I mean? That's kind of like an after mention. Um, yeah, I think it was mostly just the personal touch behind it. That really set it apart.
Yeah, what I
There's,
find so interesting about success is like a lot of times it's not just like one set pattern. It's sometimes kind of like a
Mhm.
gumbo. People throw different things in, and it can all still come out good and work. So, I mean, you
Yeah.
know, I think you found like the unique formula that works for you, and I guess that's
Mhm.
what everybody has to do. Like just because it worked for you may not work for somebody else. So, I guess
Yeah.
that's
I say the same thing, and I always say, like, I never really had any like lucky breaks or any like things that were really easy. It was a huge pain in the butt to get the game out, but I'm kind of grateful for that because it helped me learn what to do and what not to do, and to kind of give advice to other people. Not that I'm some kind of senior, but I've released one indie game, and I can help somebody else releasing their first. Um, yeah, there's a lot of odds and outs and stuff like that. And yeah, it's going to look differently for everybody. I just kind of tell them, play it by ear, do what works for you, and do what you enjoy doing. You know what I mean? In terms of marketing and such.
like so from your experience, what are some of the lessons you would say to say for example a high school student, he wants to make his own indie game, he might not have any funding now, but he wants to see the
Mhm.
game completion, like what are some of the strategies that he would need to know?
Yeah. So I've actually been visiting a few high schools. Most recently went to one in Connecticut. Oh shoot, the teacher actually emailed me. I got to get back to her. Just remember about this school year. But usually, what I would tell them is just to enjoy it and just have fun and learn and study and make sure that you have a lot of knowledge to draw from. I fell victim of this as well, but I think that when I started the game, we all play games all the time, and you think that you kind of know everything based on that. But I mean, this is kind of looking at games in a different way. So study what actually makes games fun and playable and good. Like read articles and stuff. I know it's boring, but educate yourself. Have fun with what you're making. Don't hold yourself to any like weird kind of rules that you might think exist in your genre, and put yourself out there. Make videos from the very start. Always social media, social media, social media. Like that's the name of the game, and that's kind of all I would say. You know what I mean? And I would kind of just let them figure it out and let them develop it, and then see how it develops. You know what I mean? And then maybe they would hit me up and be like, "Hey, I want to take this to the next level." Then what do I do? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think ultimately it just comes down to getting it started, and obviously there's some strategy you can follow, but
Yeah,
nothing ever goes directly according to how you were planning in your mind. So
yeah.
it's
No, not
always
at all.
there's always that element of improvisation. So like when things kind of get out of sorts and you're in uncharted waters, how do you improvise? Like how do you get the ship back on course when things are
Mhm.
chaotic and you're in a situation that you've never been in before?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think when things get like that, because I've had some situations where like, we got all sorts of NDAs going on, but like, I've had really big opportunities like me and our team thrown at us, and then something happens and it falls through, and then we're like, man, where do we go from here? We're starting from square zero, huge blow and stuff like that, because to like a bigger company, it's nothing, but like to I'm one guy who living with my dad, and then I have like a small publisher who's very passionate, putting a lot of work in stuff like that. So it was a big blow, some things that happened, and it's kind of like, where do you go? And now it's like, I've asked myself, I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Did I just waste 2 years of my life, making this game, blah blah blah, and it's kind of just getting your footing. You know what I mean? You get your footing back, things happen. I don't know. It's crazy. You got me reflecting now. So I remember you did also say like, financially, how do you figure that out? So um, I had my Kickstarter, which gave me a little bit of money, and then at a certain point, I actually worked. I worked a job and also worked on Athenian Raps. You know what I mean? Which sucked. It really stunk. It was a lot of work, and I didn't really love it because I wasn't passionate about the work I was doing. I like the people I work with. Everything's fine, whatever. Not I wasn't digging holes or lifting rocks or anything like that. Well, actually, I used to. I used to landscape with my dad, so that was a lie. But then eventually, I started working like corporate, whatever. Um, and I lived with my family and I didn't pay any rent, so I was very fortunate on that. I'll acknowledge that. Of course, very lucky, very grateful. I don't have any medical bills, nothing. Um, but I worked, I saved all my money, and then when that game came out, I stopped. I went full time in game dev, and then I was in a pretty good position because I was working and saved. You know what I mean? So I didn't have to back pay myself. So if you can, hustle to make it work, do it. I say, well, do it. Work a job. You know, make sure that you're financially set. Just do your best. It's not, some days you can work on the game all day. Some days you can't, and that's going to be all right. But just, nowadays you got to protect yourself financially. Just make sure that you're square. Don't go all in on something. Just try your best a little bit at a time. There's like all like these crazy birds flying around my window. That's one thing that's good about this office. I wonder what's going on. But yeah, that's kind of what I would say on the financial advice side of things.
Yeah, I know. Like, especially with passion projects,
Mhm.
you kind of mentioned you're not gonna necessarily make money immediately, so
No.
you're gonna have to it's gonna have to come out of pocket for a while. So,
Yeah.
you might have to work a job, save, but I believe if you do have the passion, you'll keep going. You're
Mhm.
not
Yeah.
gonna. And
Yeah.
consistency and persistence, I believe those are two pillars of actually getting something done.
Persistence is the biggest one. Persistence is huge. Yeah. Persistence is massive. That's
And
that's I would say the same thing.
so, like, yeah, I'm pretty sure the game took years to develop and get out the door. How did you like just stay on track, stay motivated to see it to completion? I know we just mentioned persistence, but
Mhm.
especially when you're not seeing the rewards immediately. Like a lot of businesses, they take years before they turn a profit. So, how did you stay on course, stay motivated until that day?
Yeah, I was just very like honestly the mental behind it was so up and down. Like I had times where like I would literally cry at night to my mom like what am I doing? Am I messing up? Because I was so passionate about it and I wanted it so bad. And my mom always believed in me and stuff like that. Everybody did. I have a very good, very great people in my life. Very lucky for that, who encouraged me and always believed in me, helped me out. But it was very up and down as I learned and I went through, just because I didn't know what I was doing, and I jumped into it. And it took me like 4 years from starting my first day with Game Maker to game full release, pretty much, which could be a pretty solid timeline. Especially for the first game. And then Tales of Tuscany, I started in August, probably come out next year. So like 2 years kind of or and change. That's different. How I really stayed motivated is that I just really just wanted. I very was truly passionate about it, and I wanted to make it work. And I also had a degree of like time sunk. You know what I mean? I was like, I spent all this time. What am I just going to quit? Like, no. Like, I really do believe in the game. I do love it. I have a community of people who really want this game. There's a lot of money to be made. There's a lot of success to be had. It's just you have to bring it into reality. It's just I was very very dialed in on make it work, make it work, make it work. But like I won't lie, there are moments where I was like, I quit. I'm done. I'm not doing this ever again. And I go landscape with my dad, and then like 2 days later, I'm like, you know what I mean? It's there were a lot of ups and downs, and I don't think that there needs to be that many ups and downs. I think it can be done with more of a balance that I know now. But it's just I didn't know what I was doing. I was younger, and I kind of thought that it was life or death. Um, and what kept me in was just that I was so locked in, like probably for better or for worse. You know what I mean? Like now I kind of realize like there's a balance. You know what I mean? Keep it, going, and it'll be okay. There's no reason to get so emotional like that. That's what I say.
Yeah, so like yeah, it's definitely a process initially when you're starting a business or anything, any kind of
Yeah.
venture.
Any
It's like
business. Yeah.
yeah, you're pushing
Mhm.
the boulder up the hill. It's
Yeah.
slow treading, it's hard, it doesn't feel that rewarding. But I know there comes a point to okay, it's starting to go downhill, and now you're starting to see the fruits of your success. Like, at what point did
Mhm.
you start seeing like, okay, this is worth it? Now the money's coming in, the fans, they're starting to appreciate it. Like, and like once that started coming in, how did you feel, and how did you deal with the success? Like, okay, and to kind of like avoid letting it get to your head and having pushing you off track.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. So pretty much the whole time that we released we announced our release date, and from then on, it was just insane. Just the amounts of like attention and just buzz and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Especially release day was the coolest day of my life. I heard from everybody on earth. There were so many things popping up saying just like amazing things about my game and myself as a developer and my team. Like really glazing, just tons. I cannot properly say how crazy of an experience it is to work on something for so long and be so uncertain about it, and then release it and have it just be, receive all of this love and these messages from players and kids about how much like the project means to them and stuff like that. Like it's really an experience that is just insane. There's no way that I could ever accurately portray how it works, but I really do appreciate it, and I really do consider myself lucky and very grateful for it. But I had that, but I didn't really understand the financial side of it because pretty much how it works is I'll get my checks like a month because of how all the platforms pay out at different rates and stuff like that, like Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, and Steam and stuff like that. A month after, I'll get the statement for all the sales for the month. And then I'll get that money, 2 weeks after or something like that, because, it takes a while to get the money. It's coming from so many places. So I didn't really know, I didn't get it until like probably a month and a half after when I saw my first check, because I would try to ask my publishers, I'm like, how much did I make? Like, can I do this full time? And they were basically like, yeah, here's, how your first month is looking, blah blah blah. And that was like, you know Because games are like this, they sell and then then he goes down to your residuals. But like, for me, I was like, whoa, oh my God, you know what I mean? It was crazy. But I don't know if that ever really got to my head as much as the whole thing with just the crazy amounts of hype and attention. And then as a normal person, going back down to just being in the development phase and kind of having nothing, no big announcements or anything like that. Obviously people still buy the game, people still love it, still get fan art, all that stuff, but just it can never compare to that moment. And that kind of did mess with my head. That was like a thing, like, man, like what a come down. You know what I mean? It's almost like, doing like a lot of drugs and then you come back down. You know what I mean? Kind of like, it's an analogy, but like that was something that messed with me and it took me a little bit to adjust. And I would tell my girlfriend about it a lot. I'm like, man, like, I just feel like, feel like I'm failing or something like that. It was weird, but it goes back to a balance, and I'm sure it'll happen again when I release this game, release the demo, blah, blah, blah. But that was something that really was difficult, and I'm not 100% sure how to avoid that. I guess it'll just get better, get easier as my career progresses. But that was kind of what that was more of like the money side of things, because the money side of things, I feel like at that point, I mean, it was like a year ago, right? Yeah. I didn't understand money as much, I guess, because, I don't know. I kind of locked in after that, I guess, financially, more on the business side. But, it was good. You know what I mean? I got the hiccups now. But, yeah, that's one thing I would say would be the get in your head aspect, you know what I mean, of releasing a game.
So like I know as you scale, as your company grows, there could be an incentive to just focus just on the money, and that's when you have companies, they release like the 10th iteration of some series, or they start doing things like quote unquote jumping the shark. This is use Call of Duty for example, like it's modern
Yeah.
warfare. Kind of like semi-realistic military shooter. Now they have guns with like roller coasters on it, and
Seth
cartoon
Rogen. Yeah.
characters. Yeah.
No, trust me. I bought Black Ops 6. And it's the last Call of Duty I'm ever going to buy. I paid $70 for it just to play with my buddies, play zombies. They won't even play zombies with me now. I want to do the new map, but they won't even play with me. No, it's just stupid. And then they announced Black Ops 7, I believe, right? They did, right? And then now
Uh, I
I
know
think
it's coming for sure sometime. So yeah, like how do you avoid getting into that to where you just
yeah,
start
they
making
did.
decisions just for money, and it's just changing the whole tone and tenor of the company and the product?
I don't think I can get away with that now. I mean, obviously, I think that it's just kind of a crazy economy for games and stuff like that. I mean, there's one aspect of myself that's like, I sell my whole RPG that I worked for a long time on for $15, which is like, a Subway sandwich that you could hate and it'd be disgusting. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, that's pretty cheap. And then, somebody could also drop $100 on Pokemon Go in a day and get nothing. You know what I mean? And I'm like, so I guess that there's an aspect of the mobile game that's kind of like, okay, this is kind of a more monetizable friendly model. And it's not that it's going to get me rich or anything like that, because it's going to be a long time before I see any money on this game. You know what I mean? Like, we have employees to pay. We have funding we have to pay back. Like, I kind of realize now, I'm like, this is not a get rich quick scheme. I'm not going to make any fucking money from this for a long time. You know what I mean? But that money though will enable me to do more things that I love and more creative things, like that kind of social experience thing I mentioned prior. But basically, I don't think that I can get away with just doing money grabs. You know what I mean? Like, I do think that there are easier genres and easier models of games to make money in and have them do bigger, a lot easier than RPGs. I think that making an RPG is a pain in the butt. And if I just wanted to make money, I would release it today and I would make something else. You know what I mean? I kind of mention that to my friends sometimes. I'm like, man, if we were smart, we would just make like a friggin', something else. I do have a lot of interest in kind of a more simple roguelike kind of game. I play a web game called Poke Rogue. I like that a lot. I think I kind of want to try something like that next as like a little spinoff. But yeah, I don't know. I think I just like RPGs too much. I think I just like my games and my universe and my community too much. And I like the experience of having an RPG out to kind of just shift solely on money. You know what I mean? And the mobile game, I hope it does well. I hope it makes money so we can build a big company out of it. But that's more so for the reason of so that we can make cool special experiences, similar to kind of like how the Behemoth Studio, who does Castle Crashers, kind of like how they do. They put a lot into their brand and their experiences and stuff like that, like at conventions and stuff. So that's kind of like what I envision for growing a company. You know what I mean? Like that kind of studio who does things like that, player friendly.
So, like, in terms of the future, what are some of the technologies or even gameplay concepts that really interest you that you really want to explore and potentially integrate into your own game?
So for one, I want to make it so that the Rhapsodies you collect from Athenian Rhapsody and Tales of Tuscany you can use in the mobile game. I want you to be able to redeem them and get some stuff there, which is pretty simple. Um, we set up a system where we could print out codes and you could redeem stuff like that in the mobile game. And with the success of the mobile game, I feel like then we can start to hold like in-person events. You know what I mean? We can have people show up somewhere and like do stuff like that. So like that's kind of the enabler of all the other fun stuff we can do that relies on a community. Um, but in terms of new technology and stuff like that, this is kind of a tangent, but I was just talking to my girlfriend. She's an occupational therapist. She was talking to me about making games that are like for occupational therapy use. So like it would like be an eye tracking game where like you would move your eyes around and it would track that and it would record it for the specialists and stuff like that and just things like that. And I'm like, thinking, and I'm like, man, I don't know how that kind of eye tracker thing would work. Just specific stuff like that. I actually wanted to hit the Game Maker team up and ask them some stuff about it, but I didn't really have a solid idea. But I think that would be cool as like a new technology and stuff. But in terms of integrations and things, not really reinventing the wheel, just kind of just tying things in similar to kind of like how old school Pokemon used to do. Like you play this, you get that, you do this, you do that, tie everything together and reward people.
So, like, something I've often heard in regards to products is like the people who are dissatisfied are often the loudest, and typically the people who, if they enjoy the product, they don't comment as much. So, in
Mhm.
terms of getting feedback for your game, how do you avoid like okay, you're making adjustments based on the community, but the people that don't really like the game, they might be speaking the loudest, and then you end up turning into a game that the fans don't like because the people who don't like it, they're speaking louder and you're catering to them.
Yeah, yeah. There was you kind of gotta learn to just take things that are just BS that people say and just roll it off your back if it's a one-off thing. But um, I think the majority of the feedback I got was from journalists, and I tried to find what was repetitive between that and also the fans. Because I say this all the time in my community. I'm like, in the Discord, it's like 1,000 something people, and I'm like, look, you guys are like the most engaged people. 90% of the players just play it on their Switch and go, oh, that was fun, and then they probably don't even beat the game. You know what I mean? I'm like, if they like the game, they'll enjoy it. But I tried to take things that were repetitive and glaring and consistent across all reports. Like people had gripes with the player inventory and the inventory size, so I fixed that. A lot of people talked about the speed of the player, and I think I didn't do anything on an impulse. I didn't reflexively change anything about the engine. I kind of sat on it for a long time. And then eventually I came to a list of things that I think really did need to change in the next game in the engine and be improved and stuff like that. And sifted through it. You know what I mean? I took more of an organized approach. Yeah, you can't just take one guy saying, oh, this guy should do this guy do, because usually it's just a scope creep. You know what I mean? Usually they just want more. That's kind of the feedback I've had. It's just people just want more. And I'm like, dude, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm one guy, dude. Like, leave me alone. But yeah. So that's kind of what I would say in terms of don't have knee jerk reactions to feedback. Just take what the average response is, and if anything, you could ask players. That's one thing about having a community is you could ping everybody and say, hey guys, what do you think? And you could even disagree with people too sometimes. I don't know. Depends on that, though. Yeah.
Yeah, to kind of close this out, how important do you feel it is to build like a strong community that is constantly engaged versus just trying to hit the masses who may not be that passionate about what you're doing, but they happen to buy the product?
I think that I think there's a big difference because I see a lot of my peers and stuff like that, and some games that are bigger than mine, or like more wish list wise, sales wise, whatever, do really well. but not really have any sort of community engagement or like continued community. And I think I'm lucky because my community, every single day in my Discord, online, whatever, everybody's talking, doing fan art, everything. And I honestly don't really engage with them that much anymore just because I'm so much more busier. But I do make content a lot. I do chat with them, obviously, and stuff like that. And I think that it just, you know, I think it does enable me to do more things that are risky. Like it's, enabling me to do this mobile game. I don't know if it'll be out this month, maybe early October, but we're going to do a public beta for the mobile game. I say not this month because I logged on this morning. I checked all the Git commits and there's all sorts of bugs. I'm going to freak out. We have a meeting later. But it enables me to take this engaged community and say, hey guys, try this game out and let me know what you think. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, if a game that doesn't really have an engaged community, ping them and say, hey guys, I'm working on something else. They might not translate. They might not put that love into that new project and stuff like that. So I think it's a trade-off. I think, yeah, maybe you could just, kind of get the money out and just squeeze out, a few extra $1,000 or something like that. But I mean, for the long game, I think the community is important, and I think it's going to benefit you, and it's going to compound exponentially with everything you do. Community very important. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, man. We're getting to the top of the hour, man. It was amazing having you on. Before we get out of here, did you want to leave our audience with any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I would say so. Probably, I would imagine that if you're watching this, you probably have an interest in starting out in games, and you kind of just want some more knowledge on, you're probably making a game already and just looking for some tips on bringing it to the, career level and stuff like that. So just, have fun with it. Don't take it too seriously. But, put in the work, hustle. If you ever need, I'm on socials. You ever want to reach out and stuff like that, questions, comments, concerns, anything like that. And just, try your best, do your thing, follow your gut with this stuff, man. It's fun. And video games are supposed to be fun. This is not a serious career. We're not doctors, nothing. I get it. So it's hard. There's a lot of passion, a lot of emotion, but the just video games, man, it's just fun. You know what I mean? So that's probably what I would say,
Hey, man, appreciate you for taking the time and allowing me to interview you, man. Whenever you want to come back, let us know, and we'll have you back.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I got to say before we leave out, I appreciate you rescheduling me because for the viewers, I joined last night when it wasn't my time. It was a wrong time. There was another guest on. So I appreciate you guys, helping me out with that. That was awesome.
Absolutely. And we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next time.